if you've ever seen me present before, I tend to share my Dynamo journey pretty often. In 2013, I opened Dynamo for the first time. I'm assuming everyone on the call knows what Dynamo is. If you don't, throw it in the chat and we'll break it down a bit more, which is fine. Uh, but I opened Dynamo for the first time in 2013, and it scared the heck out of me. So I closed it and I was like, I'm never going to learn how to use this. All the nodes turned yellow and red, and I was totally just like gutted. I was like, I'm never going to figure this out. In 2014, I attended Autodesk University, Marcelo Scambelluri's lab, Dynamo for Dummies, and it finally made sense. From there, I started making nodes and all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, I built Rhythm, which is a Dynamo package, which is freely available and open source. Started learning Python, started learning C Sharp. Rhythm became a C Sharp package, built Monocle. And now I work at Parallax team where I primarily build add-ins these days for clients. We build Dynamo graphs too, but as you may or may not know, Dynamo graphs are a little bit hard to manage sometimes. So plugins are a little easier in that sense if you know how to build them. Lauren on our team actually demonstrated a plugin of ours last month, Foreground, uh, which is really wild to me because I didn't build that. So like 4 years ago when I started at Parallax, I was building the plugins, and now we have someone else who's building things that I don't even know what all it's doing. So it's pretty wild and awesome at the same time. So that's a little bit of the history, my history. So the point there is if you're ever opening Dynamo and it intimidates you, stick with it. Don't worry because I was right there with you. I didn't wake up one day and know all this stuff. I kind of learned it over time. This is my AU slide presentation, so ignore the AU stuff. I am presenting at AU in September. Dynamo updates and how to make your graphs suck less, generally speaking. So yeah, be sure to try to stop by if you're attending AU this year. They are going to be recorded and available online, so we can post a link to that after this recording as well at the end of September. Nodes look like this now in Dynamo. Pretty exciting or not, I don't know. We'll go over that in a second. And I want to share a few things about Dynamo. So Dynamo versioning is confusing as heck. I'm going to show Revit 2023 today, but with how Dynamo versioning works, we should be able to manage Dynamo graphs from Revit 2023 all the way back to Revit 2020 at this time. And that's because of a process called semantic versioning. That first number, that number 2, that's like that teal color, that greenish teal, that's a major version. So any graph that starts with that should be compatible with one another. I'm using the word should a lot here because there are a lot of considerations. But generally speaking, my guidance if someone's in Revit 2023 is to work in that version and migrate backwards and test now. Throw it on the mural if you're using Revit 2023 already, I guess, and it'd be interesting to see who all's encountered this dark mode. So yeah, what we can go over is we'll probably just get right into features. I could dwell on what's broken a lot if you'd like, but I can share these slides after as well. But basically drop downs are broken as heck in Dynamo, and they continue to be broken, and there's a lot of different ways that they're broken, like this right here. So typing in ceilings category by name results in analytical surface ceilings in Revit 2023, the initial release. Freaking nightmare. Luckily, Monocle has a node that fixes this and it converts it to the ID, which remains stable for Dynamo versions.
And
So
so many other things. Monocle is amazing.
I'm going to show Monocle a bunch today too. So yeah, we'll close PowerPoint. It's kind of not as exciting. And here we are in Revit 2023, and this is a model that I just whipped up for this call. So don't mind this model. And under the Manage tab, we have Dynamo. That hasn't changed. It's been on the Manage tab since 2018. If anyone can tell me which tab it was on before 2018, put it in the chat or something. But it's on the Manage tab these days. So when we open Dynamo, it looks pretty similar to how it's looked. The library's changed quite a bit. So we have kind of this teal color of everything available to us, which is interesting. The library has no icons anymore. So me and my fellow package authors, we all added icons to our packages to give it branding, and everyone had it and they took it away from us. So yeah, I am a little upset about that. but they're gone. So yeah, that's a little bit new. For your Dynamo version, you are able to go to a new Dynamo menu and go to all these different settings. About is actually located in that menu now instead of help. I actually find myself going to help more often than not, and it's pretty frustrating. So, yeah, it's on the Dynamo menu now. We have preferences in here. By default now, in Revit 2023, Dynamo is in manual run mode. That's on the bottom left-hand corner of our screen. I like automatic run mode. They actually switched to automatic like in Revit 2018, but now they switched it back. So you can actually change that as well if you'd like. For this little highlight thing that I'm doing, that's through a tool called Windows Power Toys, and you hit Control twice on your keyboard for it because
Yeah, off the top, I can't think of it. Do they still have the open in manual mode when you open Dynamo Graph itself as well?
definitely. So yeah, anytime you
Awesome.
open a graph, you are able to go ahead and click on that manual
So
run mode.
important, you guys.
Yeah,
So important.
especially upgrading graphs to Revit 2023. So always keep that in mind. So yeah, like I said, I tend to use it in automatic. One thing that's kind of interesting is upgrading files right now is, I should have probably done file open because it's going to be an automatic. So perfect example of what Dana just said. Um, yeah, that ran. When you open files that are being upgraded from a previous version though, with those light gray nodes, it's going to look like this, which is amazing, right? Super exciting. And that's because all of this stuff, all these nodes changed size and went like dark mode on us. So that's a big change. There are a lot of new features. So groups now have a header and a description. So you can go into more detail here and all that kind of stuff, which is really nice. Groups are collapsible, which is also nice. That's another new feature. I suggest using that one sparingly because if you collapse everything, it gets confusing really fast. And workspace references is way better now in this version. So workspace references has existed for a while, but what it does is it helps you resolve packages on the fly when you open a Dynamo graph. So now if you have a newer version of, let's say, data shapes, you can keep your newer version or install the one that the graph was built to use. So that's a really cool feature, especially during upgrading. Another thing to keep in mind is we have this Iron Python dependency now. In Revit 2023, the Python engine for Python nodes is CPython 3. So every package that uses Python is pretty much on Iron Python 2.7. So now you have to install that as a package, as a dependency. And there's blog posts on that on the Dynamo blog for this release. Basically, Iron Python hasn't been updated in a long time, which means that it's not getting security fixes, and the Dynamo team didn't like that, so they migrated to another engine. But they're nice, and they didn't take it away from us completely. We still have the option to install it, but it's like at a do at your own risk situation, right? So yeah, I'm just going to close workspace references. But for fixing our graphs and the overlapping, we have a few options that you may or may not know about. In Dynamo, if you select a group or nodes and hit Control L on your keyboard, it does a bit of a cleanup. But as we can see, that's not perfect. It's not exactly what I would have liked it to do.
What is the cleanup doing?
It's
I never have done
actually
that. I have my
the
own OCD. Try and clean up for
yeah.
me isn't gonna help.
So there's a
Makes it
blog
worse.
post from Lily from the Dynamo team, from the generative design team. It's actually an algorithm that's doing like pathfinding as well. So it's actually tracing the wires and going around them. So it's not just a spacing, it's doing some solving as well. So if you were to have like another graph open that's doing something else and they overlap, for instance, and you hit Control L, it actually does like nudging in that way based on pathfinding, kind of, which is pretty interesting. But it's not perfect when you already have a graph that you built and you lovingly aligned everything right. You were super specific, like Dana just said she is, about aligning all the nodes. So yeah, that doesn't work so well. So there is a batch method to fix this provided by Jacob Small from Autodesk. It's on the forum, so we'll link to that as well. Dana has those files. She showed those at her Great Built class in June as well,
Which sadly wasn't recorded.
which sadly wasn't recorded. You had to be there, man.
You had to be
But yeah,
there and get COVID.
yeah. Uh, yeah, throw me off here. But yeah, so the downside with those batch scripts is if you do run them, they don't work with things like me, rhythm. I retitle my nodes as you place them with a prefix. That way you know where the heck it came from.
Which
Uh,
is awesome.
so it doesn't work with those. That's the downside. But if you get Monocle, which is a view extension for Dynamo, not only do you get access to a bunch of other tools, you now get access to this resizer or Dynamo graph. And I named things weird on purpose because we gotta set the
Love
bar
it.
low. That way, if it doesn't work so well, you're like, well, it's named like crap. Oh well, you know. So, just kidding.
And I
But
think you call it the package manage doggy or the
yeah, so this guy
right. I see, and I call it the Doge.
is the Doge. Yeah.
It's
So
the Doge. Okay.
fun tip about this one is this was the first add-in I built for Dynamo in this way. That's called a view extension. Russell from the Dynamo team's like, you should get into view extensions. They're so crazy to create in this. So I made it like really stupid looking on purpose because it was doing something they told me couldn't be done back 4 years ago, which was find which packages a graph uses. So Monocle had it first, and I believe that the workspace references was spun off kind of with inspiration from Monocle, which I think is kind of cool. I don't ever really get upset about it. I think it's really neat. Uh, this actual UI will change depending on the season of the year as well. So that's kind of a complete tangent, but it will change. So open in October and December and kind of tag me on Twitter as to what it looks like. But the resizer, it actually changes your run mode to manual if you're in automatic already, because I don't want it to run continuously while you're making changes. And what we'll do
And
is
let
we'll
us
go
know if you
ahead.
guys have had this problem where you open up your scripts in 2.13 for Revit 2023, right? You open up a Dynamo script in Revit 2023 and it is all jumbled, right? It's illegible. Now you got, if you're like me and you have incredibly bad OCD when it comes to things like this, now you have to reorganize the whole thing.
What's kind of crazy about that is it's even a little more than OCD. A new feature in Dynamo 2.13 is you can drag nodes into groups. So if your groups are resizing when you upgrade a graph and you click on a node, it adds it to that group.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it.
That sucks. So like running in manual and resizing them is really useful. So I
I
just
love it
toggled this to,
sometimes
oh, go ahead.
and hate it sometimes.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Um, I put this on one, so we'll just change this to auto run, and as we slide this, we'll start to see what it does. So as we slide this, it's actually fixing our graph for us really quickly. I tend to like 2.25 and 1.5. Those are the same values that Jacob used on his graphs. So those work really well. He must have done some research to figure out how those work. So yeah, that looks really nice. These notes kind of suck, so we can fix that as well. Um, in Monocle, if you hit Control Shift P on your keyboard, you get the boring mode of the package usage. And what we can do is I'll actually change this prefix to what it used to be, which is custom package, and clear those notes. And then I'll change it back to what I like, which is custom node, and I'll re-annotate them. Really quickly, I've annotated which package version these nodes come from now. It also pins the note to the node, which is a new feature in 2.13. That feature does a lot more than just pin notes. It actually shows you descriptions in Dynamo Player. So I encourage you to check out Dana's videos on her YouTube about those features. They're really nice. Cool. That's kind of a lot of those features that are added to this. Another one that Dana also showed on her YouTube is the graph properties. These came out in 2.12, which is in Revit 2022. And on the surface, they didn't seem like they did anything very exciting. But in Dynamo, in Revit 2023, they came to life to where they actually give us a icon. They give us a description. And I noticed a misspelling on this while recording my AU session, so that's awesome. It's fixed now for this data set if you'd like it. But yeah, they give us an icon, those pinned
When it
notes.
really didn't do anything in
They didn't do anything at
2.12,
all. So
right? It
everyone's
was
like,
just there. And you're
I'm
like,
not
what?
using that feature.
Yeah, what is this here for?
Yeah, they were being sneaky on us because in
Mm-hmm.
2023 they actually did something. So yeah, those pinned notes, they actually result in this description right here. So now you can really tell people what's going on with their graphs. You can include a URL as well that takes you to like a intranet or something to help you learn how to use the Dynamo graph. And yeah, really cool stuff. This specific graph right here will actually color code keynotes by their source. So I can give this to people as well. I think I have to toggle it and run it. And the red ones are user keynotes. So that's what this graph does actually. It's one of my first graphs that I built way back when. So I updated it for this presentation. Just a bit of nostalgia way back when Dynamo nodes were yellow by default, if anyone remembers that. um, yeah, so all these descriptions, author, URL, use them in the new version of Dynamo. They're really, really useful. Uh, Further expanding on that, if you use those features and you go get Relay, which is open source on GitHub, this actually fires off Dynamo graphs from the ribbon. And we use those descriptions and those URLs to fill out the F1 help and the description of the button on the ribbon. So these are actual Dynamo graphs that just fire off in the background from the ribbon. So that's a rhythm node that gives you a UI. And let me close Dynamo because running Dynamo.
So Relay is a rhythm extension.
Relay is an actual full plugin that's just open source on GitHub. It's not the only thing it has to do
From
with
the
Dynamo.
Parallax team.
Yes, yeah. So the only
Yeah,
thing it has to do
yeah.
with Dynamo is it takes a
Put in the
folder
link in our
structure.
mural.
It takes a folder structure and it takes Dynamo graphs in that folder structure and puts them as buttons for you. It is open source, so it's not like a fully supported tool. I have to say that because we open sourced it because we were working on other projects which use some of these bits of logic, and I figured why not share it with the broader community as well. So yeah, there's like a lot of little sample graphs in here too. So I think this one is giving me trouble the other way, but we'll run it anyway. It uses data shapes to create a UI. So Relay creates no UI. You have to create it in data shapes. And this uses data shapes to chart your wall type usage and all that good stuff. The push on drafting view was acting weird the other day though. So that's a data shapes thing, I think with IronPython. But yeah, really cool if you build UIs with data shapes. I guess I'll kind of finish it out here as well. So groups, once again, you create groups, title, description, pretty cool. Let's go ahead and add another node just to do this. You can drag and drop into the groups. And at the beginning, I said how I started out using Dynamo and I was really afraid of it. I just want to show this contribution because I'm kind of proud of it. My first contribution to Dynamo source code was this last year, and it was to hold down Alt to remove a node from a group. So they added the ability to drag into a group. They didn't give you an ability to remove. So now if you hold Alt, you can do that. So I added that to the source code. So that was pretty wild to me. That first of all, they accepted it and my code wasn't crap, and that it's in there now. So pretty excited about that one. So yeah, I encourage you to try out all the new features. There's a lot of cool new things in there. Install the IronPython stuff if you're using older versions of packages. Use the graph preferences. If you want to run in manual run mode, go for it. It just depends on what you're doing. If you're creating sheets or something, run in manual run mode. Do not run in automatic. Trust me. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I had. If there's any questions, I could pop into them real quick. I covered that. Cool.
Were there any changes to lacing or binding in 23?
So laces or binding are the same. So it's just auto, shortest and longest.
And
For
cross
most
product, right?
scenario and cross product, for most scenarios, auto is going to work for you pretty well. If you start encountering issues, you can then mess with it more. And for those who might not know what that means, what we can do, we'll open that one maybe. Yeah, so lacing's in the bottom corner of the node, and there's a great graphic on the Dynamo primer about this. But basically, if you have a list of one item, and then you have a list of 4 items, shortest goes 1 to 1, longest goes like this, and then cross product goes all over the place. Yeah, real quick with the finger demonstration. But yeah, nothing
I
changed
feel
there.
like auto or longest is usually the two that I mess with the most.
Yeah, I find myself using shortest if I'm controlling the lists. So like a lot of times I'm like creating one-to-one matches because I want to be in control of the data. Um, in regards to binding, nothing changed for that in 2023. You still have stuff update. So if you create an element in Dynamo and change a parameter, it will move. So use Dynamo Player because that doesn't have binding if you don't want binding. Jacob also has a great post about that on the forum that we can link to. Um,
And I will link to
the
the
ArchiLab question's
primer.
pretty interesting. So let me just search it just to show it real quick. And I'm probably out of time.
Nope, you have all the time you want.
So if you use ArchiLab, which is one of the must-have packages, honestly,
Absolutely.
uh, is it a dash in the darn thing? Their search still sucks in 2023. So yeah,
Yes. It's
lab.net.
archi-lab.net.
Consistency
So
matters.
yeah, so for his package, you don't just click install if you're in a Revit version. Managing plugins for Revit versions is really easy because each plugin lives on its own. Dynamo packages, we have no way to ship several different versions. So Conrad decided to do this a different way, which some might not agree with, but it works if you know the logic. Basically, these last two numbers right here are which version of Revit you should install that on. So all these 23s are the ones you should install. This 22 would be what you install in Revit 22, and this 21 is what you'd install in Revit 21. He made that decision because API changes in Revit means he either needs to target the highest version and leave all the older versions out, or vice versa. With this, he's able to manage compatibility for every Revit version, but it is a different package version for each Revit version, which makes it hard if you're pulling from a deployment that's like on a network for all 2.0 versions. So that's kind of like the downside to that. That's why we always recommend to sync packages locally. So always, always, always. And another tip is if you hit %app data percent in your bar, it'll take you to your app data folder. Always pull your packages local to app data. Don't do the mapping to a network. First of all, do it if you hate your laptop users, I guess. But it just doesn't work very well. There's actually a link in Autodesk's or Dynamo Team's release notes that says if your network drive's bigger than 100 gigabytes, your Dynamo will slow down. And if you're someone in charge of getting adoption of Dynamo at your firm, making it slow down even more is not like a great thing to do to your users. And then once again, if you have a laptop and you're mapped to the network, you go to some meeting or a lunch and learn or something, and you're like, check out this Dynamo graph. And then everything turns yellow and people are like, show me when it works. And you're like, it worked 5 minutes ago. So like, yeah, just don't map to a network path. Yeah.
So John, just a quick question as far as administration goes. So then the best practice then would be to distribute from a central location to the local machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we actually do it at Parallax through our deployment tools, which are called pragmatic praxis. And every time someone logs into their machine, it will sync packages from the network. And all of us in Parallax have a network location that we're mapped to. I'm opening it on the other screen because Aaron will kill me if I just show the entire network. I'd like to keep my job today if I could. But yeah, so we have a 2.x network location, and all of these sync when you log on to your machine each morning. So it'll actually give you the packages, and I manage this for us. So I update packages on here. Aaron logs in tomorrow, or Lauren or Melissa, and they get these packages right away. For me, I'm preparing for an AU presentation, so I had to turn that off because I kept overriding packages for my demonstration. So that was fun. So it's something to keep in mind as well. For things like Lunchbox,
That's what the other laptop is for.
yeah. For things like Lunchbox, it's really nice to manage them that way because it's no longer on the package manager. So you would have to manage it kind of
Well,
like
and I
that.
will say one thing I ran into is I love ArchiLab, love Conrad. Many of his nodes are still working, but anything that includes Python, unfortunately, he hasn't upgraded it to Python 3, so those will not work in 2.13. There's plenty of nodes that still will work that do not incorporate Python, but any of his nodes that incorporate Python, unfortunately, may not or probably will not work.
And I think that's pretty common for most packages. So like Clockwork is Iron Python as
Unless
well.
you're John Pierson and Rhythm.
Rhythm's all C sharp, and I did that when they changed to 2.0 because the file format changed for DYF files. So I didn't see all this coming, right? But I did that because I was like, well, how do I manage this for all these versions of Revit? So Rhythm, you just install the latest one and it works all the way back to Revit 2020. Some nodes might not work. Like if you go try to modify view titles in 2018, like duh, like that's not going to work because those APIs didn't exist till 2022. But for the most part, it works pretty well. The one thing is you will get notifications sometimes that say this version targets Revit 2022 and you're in Revit 2020. Dynamo shows you every warning. They like to point out everyone else's warnings, but not their own, so that's fun. So that's ignorable when it says something about a Revit dependency normally. Yeah, I think I probably went way over time. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
this was great. I mean, as we all know, Dynamo is my favorite topic. So could talk about it all day. Thank you so much, John. And I really do appreciate it.